Someone asks what you want for dinner, and you say it doesn't matter. A friend cancels plans at the last minute, and you shrug it off. Your partner forgets something important to you, and you tell them it's fine, really you don't care. And in the moment you say it, you almost believe it. There is a flatness to your response, a carefully maintained neutrality that feels like maturity, like being easygoing, like not sweating the small things. But underneath that smooth surface, there is something else, something you learn not to look at directly. It is not peace. It is not acceptance. It is the quiet hum of a defense system that has been running so long you no longer hear it operating. This detachment feels safe. It feels like control. When you don't care, you can't be disappointed. When you don't have preferences, you can't be let down. When you don't invest emotionally, you can't lose. And so you have cultivated this posture of indifference, this way of moving through the world with your emotional stakes carefully lowered. People might describe you as laid back, as flexible, as someone who goes with the flow. But there are moments, usually when you are alone, when you catch yourself wondering why nothing feels urgent anymore, why nothing moves you the way it used to, why there is this strange distance between you and your own life. The phrase, "I don't care," has become a reflex. It emerges automatically in situations that once might have stirred something in you: frustration, disappointment, desire, hurt. Now there is just this quick internal calculation, a decision made faster than conscious thought, and then the words, "I don't care." And most of the time, you move on without examining what just happened. But occasionally, in the space after you've said it, there is a flicker of something, a feeling you can't quite name, a sense that you just declined to participate in something that mattered. And then that feeling passes too, and you return to the comfortable numbness you have mistaken for emotional stability. So the question emerges, quiet but persistent: what am I actually protecting myself from when I say, "I don't care"? The answer does not live in logic. It lives in memory, in pattern, in the accumulated weight of moments when caring cost you something you could not afford to lose. Somewhere in your history, you learned that having preferences made you vulnerable. You learned that wanting something meant risking disappointment. You learned that showing you cared gave other people power over you, the power to deny you, to dismiss you, to use your care against you. And so you began to withdraw your emotional investment as a form of self-protection. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually, in small acts of detachment that felt like wisdom at the time. Perhaps it began in childhood, when you expressed excitement about something and watched it get taken away, or minimized, or used as leverage. Perhaps it was in adolescence, when you let someone know you cared about them and experienced the specific pain of having that care ignored or rejected. Perhaps it was later, in adult relationships where your needs were repeatedly unmet, where your desires were treated as inconvenient, where your emotional reactions were labeled as too much, too sensitive, too dramatic. Whatever the origin, the lesson was clear: caring makes you weak. Showing what matters to you creates vulnerability. And vulnerability invites pain. So you learn to preempt that pain by not caring in the first place. Or at least by telling yourself you don't care. By performing indifference until it began to feel real. By lowering your expectations so thoroughly that disappointment became impossible. This adaptation made sense. It worked. It protected you from the immediate sting of rejection or neglect. But what you could not see then, and what perhaps you are only beginning to see now, is what that protection cost you. The mechanism operates mostly in silence. Someone suggests a restaurant, and before you even register your preference, you have already decided it doesn't matter. A colleague dismisses your idea in a meeting, and before the hurt can surface, you have already told yourself it wasn't important anyway. Your partner makes plans without consulting you, and before the anger can form, you have already convinced yourself you're fine with whatever. In each of these moments, there is a micro-decision happening beneath conscious awareness, a choice to not feel, to not want, to not care. And each time you make that choice, the distance between you and your own emotional life grows slightly wider. What makes this pattern so insidious is that it wears the mask of maturity. Our culture celebrates people who don't care too much, who don't get bothered by small things, who can let things roll off their back. We admire emotional restraint. We value flexibility and easygoingness. And so when you practice detachment, you receive social reinforcement for it. People appreciate that you're low maintenance. They like that you don't make waves. They find you easy to be around because you never demand anything, never express dissatisfaction, never complicate things with your needs. And this reinforcement confirms your belief that not caring is a strength, a virtue, a sign of emotional evolution. But there are cracks in this facade. They appear in unexpected moments. You watch someone else get excited about something small, a meal, a plan, a gift, and you feel a strange pang, not of judgment but of loss, as if you are watching someone speak a language you used to know. Or you realize you cannot remember the last time you felt strongly about anything, the last time something mattered enough to move you. Or someone asks you what you want, what you really want, and you discover you genuinely do not know. The question feels foreign. The answer feels inaccessible. And underneath that blankness is something that feels dangerously close to grief. Because what you have been protecting yourself from is not just disappointment or rejection. You have been protecting yourself from feeling at all, from wanting, from caring, from the vulnerability inherent in being alive and having preferences and desires and needs. And in protecting yourself from potential pain, you have also protected yourself from joy, from connection, from the fullness of your own experience. You have chosen a kind of emotional hibernation, telling yourself it is rest when it is actually absence. The fear that drives this detachment is not always obvious. It does not announce itself. It hides behind rationalizations. You tell yourself you're being reasonable, being mature, being adaptable. You tell yourself that caring too much is exhausting, that having strong preferences creates conflict, that emotional neutrality is a form of wisdom. But beneath these explanations is something more primitive and more frightening, the fear that if you care, if you want, if you invest emotionally, you will be hurt. And not just hurt, but exposed. Revealed as someone who needs things, who wants things, who can be disappointed and rejected and left wanting. The fear is not just of pain, it is of being seen as vulnerable, and therefore weak, and therefore unworthy. This fear learned to speak in your voice. It learned to present itself as your preference, your personality, your choice. It learned to say, "I don't care," so convincingly that you forgot it was a defense rather than a truth. And over time, the defense became so automatic that you stopped noticing the moments when you could have cared, when you wanted to care, when something in you reached toward engagement before the fear pulled you back into safety. The pivot comes when you begin to notice the gap between what you say and what is actually true. You say, "I don't care about dinner," but there is a restaurant you've been thinking about, a dish that sounded good, a preference you dismissed before it could fully form. You say, "It's fine," when plans change, but there is disappointment there, small but real, that you talk yourself out of before it can be acknowledged. You say, "Whatever works," when someone asks your opinion, but there is a perspective forming, a thought trying to emerge, that you silence before it can become inconvenient. And in noticing these moments, you begin to see the pattern for what it is. Not strength, not maturity, not wisdom, but protection. A shield you built so long ago you forgot you were carrying it. A way of keeping yourself safe that has now become a way of keeping yourself at a distance from your own life. The realization is not comfortable. It asks you to reconsider something you have believed about yourself, something you have maybe even been proud of, your ability to not care, to not be bothered, to be emotionally self-sufficient. It asks you to see that what you called detachment was often just fear wearing a more acceptable face. This recognition does not come with instructions. It does not tell you what to do differently. It simply shows you what is true. You have been afraid. Afraid of wanting and not receiving. Afraid of caring and being hurt. Afraid of revealing what matters to you and having it used against you. And in response to that fear, you learn to preempt vulnerability by numbing yourself to your own desires, your own preferences, your own feelings. You learn to say, "I don't care," as a way of saying, "I won't let you hurt me." And it worked, in the way that survival strategies work. It kept you safe. But it also kept you alone. Alone inside a carefully constructed fortress of indifference, where nothing can reach you because you have made sure nothing matters enough to penetrate the walls. What you are beginning to understand is that the cost of that safety is connection. Connection to others, yes, but more fundamentally, connection to yourself. When you habitually detach from your own preferences and desires, when you reflexively minimize what matters to you, when you practice indifference as a form of self-protection, you lose touch with the part of you that is alive and wanting and engaged with the world. You become a spectator in your own life, watching things happen, agreeing to things, going along, but never fully present, never fully invested, never fully there. And here is what makes this particularly painful to recognize. The fear that created this pattern was not irrational. It was based on real experiences of real pain. You were hurt. You were disappointed. You were rejected or dismissed or taken advantage of when you showed you cared. The fear is legitimate. The pain was real. And the defense you built in response was not weakness, it was survival. But what served you then, what protected you in circumstances where you genuinely needed protection, has now become a prison. The walls you built to keep danger out are now keeping you in. The question is not whether you were right to build those walls. You were. The question is whether you still need them now. Whether the protection is still serving you, or whether it is now costing you more than it saves. Whether the safety of not caring is worth the price of not feeling, not wanting, not living with full engagement. These are not questions with easy answers. They are questions that ask you to consider what kind of life you want to live, what kind of person you want to be, what you are willing to risk in order to feel something real again. There is no dramatic transformation waiting at the end of this recognition. There is only a slow, difficult relearning. A practice of noticing when you say, "I don't care," and pausing long enough to ask if it's true. A willingness to feel the vulnerability of having preferences, of expressing desires, of showing what matters to you even when showing it feels dangerous. A gradual rebuilding of trust, not in others, at least not at first, but in yourself. Trust that you can care and survive the disappointment. Trust that you can want something and handle not getting it. Trust that feeling deeply, even when it hurts, is better than not feeling at all. The ending of this story is not resolution. It is awareness. It is the quiet acknowledgement that indifference is rarely the absence of feeling. It is, more often, fear that learned how to stay silent. And once you see that, once you recognize the protective mechanism for what it is, you cannot unsee it. The pattern continues, you will still say, "I don't care." Sometimes still retreat into detachment when vulnerability feels too dangerous. But now you will know what you are doing. You will feel the gap between the truth and the defense. And in that gap, there is the possibility, however small, of choosing differently. Not because you should. Not because someone tells you to. But because somewhere underneath the fear and the numbness and the carefully practiced indifference, there is a part of you that still wants to care. That still wants to feel. That still wants to be alive in your own life, even if it means being hurt sometimes. Even if it means being vulnerable. Even if it means risking the very thing you have spent so long protecting yourself from. The pain of caring deeply in a world that does not always care back.